Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Divine Protection. We will begin chapter 17, Parvati curses Chitraketu. Yesterday we concluded the chapter 17. King Chitraketu meets Lord Sankarshan and he was given the instructions by Lord, and Lord tested Chitraketu as well, asked him all kinds of questions about bhakti, about various other topics, and King Chitraketu answered them all perfectly to Lord's satisfaction. And in the last verses of the last chapter, which is chapter 16, the Lord said that to attain the ultimate perfection of self-realization, it is crucial that one understands the relationship between the individual spirits and the Lord, because Lord said that all souls are part of Him, and also Lord says, "Who am I, the whole?" And thus, all the souls, they shared the qualities of Lord. And King Chitraketu was a little bit in confusion when he heard this from Lord. And the analogy of the drop of ocean water was given, that it is qualitatively same as the entire ocean. So how fortunate he was that the Lord was explaining everything to him. And Lord also instructed King Chitraketu to follow the instructions, his instructions, and give up all attachment to the material sense gratification, and he asked him to imbibe the teachings of the scriptures and to apply them in his life. So that he could join the Lord soon in his abode. So let's begin chapter 17. Parvati curses Chitraketu. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yad kripa tamam vande shigrum dinitarinam parmananda madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Verses 1 to 3, Chitraketu bowed down in the direction in which the Lord had disappeared. Then he continued to travel in outer space, enjoying life as the head of the Vidyadhars. He was the most powerful mystic yogi, and his bodily strength and senses did not deteriorate throughout the millions of years that he traveled in the valleys of Sumeru mountain with other perfected mystics. In those valleys, he enjoyed chanting the Supreme Lord's glories in the company of the Vidyadhar ladies. Krishna became very pleased with him and devised a plan to quickly bring him back to his abode. So how fortunate he was, King Chitraketu. Even as the head of the Vidyadhars, he enjoyed chanting, and he had a perfect body as well. He lived for millions of years, and he then traveled to the Sumeru mountains where he chanted. Verses 4 to 5. One day, as Chitraketu was traveling through the skies on an effulgent plain given to him by Vishnu, he saw Shiva surrounded by Siddhas and Charans, embracing Parvati as she sat on his lap. Astonished by this sight, Chitraketu began laughing. Verses 6 to 8. This is quite amazing. Shiva is the spiritual master. Now these are verses 6 to 8. Shiva is the spiritual master of everyone and the best of all embodied beings. Just to give a recap, we are all embodied beings. That means our souls are living inside the body. So we are all embodied beings, conditioned souls. How wonderful it is that he publicly embraces his wife even as he lectures on religious principles. He has certainly undergone great austerities and penances. Indeed, he is the strictest follower of the Vedic principles. How then How could he shamelessly embrace his wife in front of all these saintly people as if he was a common man? Even such men embrace their wives in private. I cannot believe that Lord Shiva, whose self-control is beyond doubt, is openly cavorting with his wife in the presence of this assembly of great saints. Verse 9. Shiva understood Chitraketu's intention. He was not criticizing, but he was concerned that what others might. After all, Daksha's accusations against him were widely remembered. The god knew Chitraketu considered him to be completely pure and that he wanted him to be cautious, not to give others reason to criticize him. Shiva therefore simply smiled. All the Siddhas and Charans present also understood Chitraketu's mind and followed Lord Shiva's lead, saying nothing. Verse 10. Parvati, however, was infuriated. How dare Chitraketu minimize the superior position of Shiva and herself by assuming to instruct them? It seemed he had become proud after being favored by Lord Sankarshan. The goddess glared at Chitraketu, her eyes red with anger. So we can see Lord Shiva and the other assembled saints, they were fine. Shiva understood Chitraketu's intentions, why he was thinking like that. But Parvati, she got angry. Verses 11 and 12. Has this upstart been appointed to punish shameless persons like us? She hissed. Is he now holding the rod of justice? So Parvati is thinking like that. Have Brahma, Manu and all the celestial sages forgotten religious principles? Is that why they have not checked Shiva's improper behavior? Verses 13 and 14. Breathing heavily, Parvati said, this lowest of men arrogantly thinks himself better than Brahma and the other gods, who always meditate upon the holy feet of Lord Shiva, who is religion personified and guru of the world. For this he must be punished. Censuring Chitraketu for his pride, the goddess declared that although he thought himself a great devotee of Vishnu, his impudence made him unfit to approach the Lord. Verse 15. Chitraketu widened his eyes in horror. He put his palms together. Mother, forgive me. I meant no offense. Hardly mollified, she addressed him sternly. My dear son, you have behaved insolently. I must punish you so you never again offend an exalted saintly person. You will take birth in a low and sinful family of demons. Verse 16. Chitraketu remained passive. The curse was not justified. He had not intended to offend Shiva, yet Krishna must have sanctioned and punished. Descending from his airplane, he bowed humbly before Parvati. Verses 17 to 19. He knelt before her with clasped hands and said, my dear mother, I accept your curse, which is certainly ordained by the Lord's agents as the proper reaction to my past sins. Forgetting our relationship with Krishna, spirit souls like myself wander in material existence. Sometimes we enjoy because of our past piety, and sometimes we suffer due to impiety. Only because of ignorance do people attribute their happiness or unhappiness to their own immediate actions or to those of others. Verse 20. Chitraketu spoke wistfully. Since I am drowning in this fast-flowing river of material existence, I see no difference between the waves of happiness or distress, heavens or hells, and curse and favors. I see it all as misery. Only when we reach the shore of Krishna's lotus feet can we experience genuine happiness. So we can see how Chitraketu was such a realized, King Chitraketu was such a realized soul. Shiva said, tell me, Chitraketu, who puts living entities into different conditions of material existence and who delivers them? So in the last chapter, Lord Sankarshan was asking various questions from King Chitraketu. Now it's Shiva. Verse 31, Chitraketu said, Krishna does everything. All the material world does not affect him. He uses his avidya potency of ignorance to put the living entities into material bondage by the three modes of nature, which are also his energies. He sometimes puts the conditioned souls in a fortunate condition of life and sometimes unfortunate, and by his energy of transcendental knowledge he liberates them. Shiva smiled, enjoying his exchange with Chitraketu. He said, it seems Krishna hates some souls and loves others. Otherwise, why does he put some in distress and others in happiness, and yet others he liberates? Verse 22, clearly enlivened by this exchange, Chitraketu replied, no, the Lord has no favorites or enemies. He is equal toward all living entities. He is always transcendently happy and has no attachment to the so-called happiness or distress of the material world. Therefore, there is no question of him ever feeling disturbed by anyone. If the Lord has no friends and enemies, said Shiva, then why does he make one person happy and other miserable? Verse 23, Krishna has no personal interest in our material suffering and happiness, said Chitraketu. So some nice question and answers between Shiva and Chitraketu are being exchanged here. However, to manage universal affairs fairly, he has created the law of karma. His external material energy implements it like an impartial judge implementing state law. A judge applying governmental laws sentences a criminal to a prison. So this is the role of Mahamaya, the external material energy. But the same judge may give a worthy citizen a reward. Yet neither the judge nor the government are responsible for the criminal's imprisonment or other person's reward. Similarly, neither Krishna nor his material energy are to blame for the reactions enjoyed and suffered by the living entities. Parvati crossed her arms. How is it that despite your big learning, you so arrogantly insulted my husband? So now Parvati is asking Chitraketu. Verse 24, Chitraketu knelt before Parvati with folded hands. Mother, please forgive me. I did not intend to insult your exalted husband. Since my words offend you, I beg your pardon. Parvati stiffened. So you think a simple sorry will excuse you? Chitraketu bowed his head. I am not asking that you release me from your curse, which is surely the result of my own past acts. Chitraketu humbly reached out and touched Shiva's feet, who raised his hand in blessing. Parvati's heart softened when Chitraketu also touched her feet, and she too raised her hand. So now Parvati is actually kind of blessing and forgiving Chitraketu. Verse 25, without another word, Chitraketu boarded his airplane and left. Parvati's anger subsided. She looked at her husband. How astonishing that he does not fear my curse. Verses 26 to 27. Narada, the demon followers of Shiva, the Siddhas, and everyone else who was present in the assembly pressed closer to hear Shiva's reply. My dear beautiful Parvati, you are certainly very glorious, but I do not think that you can compete with the glory of Vishnu's servants. So this is Shiva's reply to Parvati. By Narayan's grace, his pure devotees become reservoirs of all excellent qualities. The evidence is that although you became angry with Chitraketu, he offered his respects to you and accepted your curse. He said nothing in retaliation. This is the excellence of a devotee. I can impartially judge that simply by being Narayan's devotee. Chitraketu has become more glorious than you. Parvati and the assembled sages marveled at the At Chitraketu's forbearance and gentility, Parvati said, "How is it, my dear husband, that Narayan's devotees exhibit such restraint?" Verse 28, Shiva smiled, "His devotees are fearless because they are fully surrendered to his supreme will. They do not mind in what condition of life Krishna places them in. They single-mindedly serve the Lord in every situation, whether liberated in heaven or even in hell." Verse 29, "You, O goddess, are powerful, for you create, maintain, and annihilate innumerable universes, but even you work according to Narayan's direction. Those souls who are not his pure devotees suffer the dualities of material existence, but Narayan's pure devotees are happy in any condition because of their happiness comes from the pure love for Narayan." So the writers have given the appendix also to this, which is the Narayan Para devotee, and I would like to read that. So verse 29 of chapter 17 has this further reading. Actually, one who is Narayan Para, pure Krishna conscious devotee of the Lord, he is not afraid of going to hell or being promoted to the heaven. For him, everything is all right. Narayana Paraha Sarve na Kutaschana Bibhyati Swarga Pavarga Narakeshwa Api Tulyarth Darshina. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, verse 17, chapter 17, verse 28. For heaven or hell, it doesn't matter. That is pure devotion. Anya Bilashita Shunyam, which is from Bhakti Samrita Sindhu 1.1.11. Without any desire, that is also desire. That I am going back to home, back to Godhead, but that desire is very highly qualified desire. But a pure devotee does not desire even that. Anya Bilashita Shunyam, Chaitanya Charitamrit 19.167. I do not desire what do not desire. They do not desire even to go back to Godhead, and what to desire for being elevated or prompted to the heavenly planet. They simply want, let me remain where Krishna desires. I may be engaged in his service. That is pure devotion. That is pure devotees. That is all. Devotee, that is all. Anya Bilashita Shunyam Janma Jnana Karmadi Anavritam Chaitanya Charitamrit Madhya 19.167. Jnani, they want to merge. Karmi, they want to be elevated to the heavenly planet. Yogi, they want mystic power. They want something. A pure devotee doesn't want anything. Therefore, it is called ahetuki. So, not wanting anything. There's a term in Sanskrit for that. That is ahetuki. And pure devotee is of that nature. Hetu means cause. I'm serving God for this cause. I'll go back to home, back to Godhead. That is also cause. So ahetuki means no cause. Krishna is my lovable deity. I must serve. That is pure devotion. So that is also a devotion of, meaning of the pure devotion. That Krishna is my lovable deity I must serve. This is pure devotion. Just like Prahlad Maharaj was offered all kinds of facilities. Prahlad, you have suffered for me so much. Now you take whatever you like. Prahlad Maharaj replied, my dear Lord, it is not a good proposal because I am born of a father, passionate father. Generally I am passionate and you are so exalted. You can give me anything, so I shall be inclined to ask you again, just like my father had so many opulences, so kindly do not induce me in that way. I am not a merchant that because I have rendered some service unto you, I expect some return. No, Savai Vanik, it is not business with you. I am your eternal servant. Oh, just see, this is pure devotee. Ahetuki, no reason. It is my duty. That is occupational duty. It is my eternal occupation to serve you. These are highest ideas of pure devotion. Ahetuki aprati hata, then you are poor man, how can you serve me? No, you are illiterate. No, you have no education. How can you serve me? You cannot understand Vedanta philosophy. How can you know me? How can you serve me? You are a poor man, you are a poor man, you are a woman, or you are a Sudra. No apratihata. Whatever you may be, either you are poor man or rich man or black or white man or woman or man, it doesn't matter. Everyone has right to serve Krishna apratihata. There is nothing in the material world which can check one's devotional service. It is so pure and exalted. Ahetukiya prati hata. And if you be situated in such kind of devotional service, yatma suprasidati, immediately you become happy. That is the standard of happiness we are seeking. I may be happy in this way. I will be happy in this way. No, you can simply become happy because when you are proud devotee or pure devotee of the Lord, without any reason, pure devotee, ahetuki apati hata yayatma suprasidati. Prabhupada lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.6, then 27. Prabhupada lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.6, dated 27th August 71 in London. Verse 30, you can only delude those who forget Krishna. Such persons are absorbed in the dualities of material existence, imagining some situations as happy and others as distressful, some things as good and others as bad. Thus deluded, they resemble a person who hallucinates that a flower garland is a snake and who in a dream sees he is suffering or enjoying. Verse 31, my dear wife, persons with spontaneous pure love for Krishna perfectly understand the nature of material existence and are completely detached from it. Thus they are undisturbed by the so-called happiness or distress. Verse 23, those who think themselves independent controllers can never properly snake or in a dream sees he is suffering or enjoying. Verse 31, my dear wives, persons with spontaneous love for Krishna perfectly understand the nature of material existence and are completely detached from it. Thus they are undisturbed by the so-called happiness or distress of this world. Verses 32 to 33, those who think themselves independent controllers can never properly understand Krishna's greatness, even if they are as powerful as me or any other principal god. Gods as learned and renounced as Narada and Brahma's other saintly sons, such people cannot understand that Krishna has no favorites or enemies, and that as the super soul in every living being's heart, he is affectionate to all. So it's very important what has been explained in verses 32 and 33. My Lord Shiva, that even the principal gods and the learned and renounced saints and Narada and the Brahma's other sons, even such people cannot understand that Krishna has no favorites or enemies. Krishna is above all that. And that super soul in every living being's heart, as super soul in everyone's heart, Krishna is affectionate to all. Verses 34 and 35. Just as Krishna is transcendental to material dualities and friendly to all, so are his pure devotees like myself and Chitraketu. You mistakenly thought he was insulting me. Try to understand, my dear lady, Krishna's devotees are always peaceful and friendly toward everyone. So we can see why Shiva is also called the highest of all Vaishnavas, Vaishvanam, Yashvaranam Yatha Shambho. This is also written in Bhagavatam. Try to understand, my dear lady. Krishna's devotees are always peaceful and friendly toward everyone. Parvati blushed and lowered her head. So Shiva has nicely explained to Parvati. He laughed at you for seating me on your lap in front of everyone. Shiva spoke gently. My dear wife, he was joking with me. He knows how renounced I am. If you had not interrupted our exchange, I would have joked back with him. So we see this happens to us in material life as well. Sometimes we misunderstand a situation completely, but when it is explained, then we also feel a little bit embarrassed that we didn't understand the whole situation and we just made our own conclusions. This is what has happened with Parvati. Verse 36, Parvati lowered her head and covered her face with her sari. I'm so terribly sorry that I became angry. I did not understand Chitraketu's exalted position. I now see that I was wrong to curse him. Verse 37, Shukadev brought the narration to close. Dear King Parikshit, the great devotee Chitraketu was highly powerful. If he had wanted, he could have retaliated and cursed Parvati. Instead, he humbly accepted her curse and offered her respect by replacing his head at her feet. Such humility and tolerance are the key characteristics of real devotees. So, these are the characteristics of real devotees. They are so humble, and even if it's not their mistake, they don't mind asking for forgiveness, like Chitraketu bowed his head at Parvati's feet. Verses 38 and 39, because of Parvati's curse, Chitraketu took birth as the demon Vritra from Twashta's fire sacrifice. So we can see this is all Lord's arrangement. In one activity, Lord can solve two things, or how he is making sure that Chitraketu's journey is fast forward and Chitraketu can come to Lord's abode. However, he did not lose any of his former spiritual knowledge and realization. I hope my explanation fully answers your question of how such a great devotee as Vritra could have been born a demon. So, Parikshit sat with his head bowed, absorbed in the memories of how he had angrily garlanded Samika with a dead snake, Samika with a dead snake. If only he could have been as tolerant as Chitraketu. So it's humbling for King Parikshit to think that how he had behaved with King Samik. Parikshit wondered how he could ever be free. I'll repeat that. If only he could have been as tolerant, that is Parikshit, as Chitraketu, who had not retaliated in the least when slighted by Parvati. Parikshit wondered how he could ever be free of pride and rise to the platform of pure devotional service. Verse 40, Shukadev understood his heart and spoke compassionately. Chitraketu is indeed a great soul. Anyone who hears his history from Krishna's devotee will be freed from the impurities of material life. Shaunak opened his eyes wide in delight. My dear Sutta, are we to understand that anyone who hears Chitraketu's history is released from the influence of the modes of nature, even the sinful people of Kali Yuga? Verse 41, Sutta looked around at all the sages who sat in anticipation of his reply. He said, absolutely, if a faithful person rises from bed early in the morning and recites this history for Krishna's pleasure with an undeviating mind and without interruption, such a person will certainly return to the spiritual world. Shaunak and other sages looked at each other in amazement. They wrote, Hari Hari, all glories to Krishna and the great soul, Chitraketu. They chanted Krishna's name in ecstasy for some time, feeling supremely fortunate and satisfied by Sutta's grace they could achieve all their goals. Gradually the chanting subsided and the sages again settled themselves to hear more. Shaunak said, Dear Sutta, we are so fortunate that you have come into our midst. By the potency of your narrations, you are delivering not only us but also any suffering soul in Kali Yuga who submissively hears these narrations, and that includes all of us in this yuga. And we have to thank Srila Prabhupada for making Bhagavatam understood to all of us by giving us the purports of Bhagavatam translations, and then further devotees, his devotees and his grand devotees who have made it even easier for us to understand through their lectures, through their classes, and through the books like the one we are reading now. Sutta placed his palms together and with great humility and gravity replied, I am insignificant. I simply repeat what I have heard from the great self-realized soul, Shukadev Goswami. So everybody is very humble. Sutta is thanking Shukadev Goswami, and Shukadev Goswami we know is Vyasadev's son, and Shukadev was Radharani's parrot in earlier life. So the mercy, it's all coming from Krishna. Mercy is everywhere, and all is needed is endeavor on our part. The assembled sages nodded and smiled in approval at Sutta's humility. Shaunak encouraged Sutta to speak more. You have told us about the descendants of Manu, including the Prachetas who married Marisa, daughter of the trees. You described how she gave birth to Daksha, who had to be reborn after he had insulted Shiva. After marrying Asikni, he fathered 60 daughters who, along with their powerful husbands, continued to populate the universe. 17 of those goddesses married the sage Kashyap. And we have heard of some of his descendants, which included Twashta and his 2 sons Vishwarup and great devotee Vritra. We are eager to hear more about this illustrious dynasty. Please continue to recite if it so pleases you. Sutta said, I have already spoken about Aditi's first 4 sons, Vivaswan, Aryama, Pusha and Twashta. Now hear what Shukadev said about her other 8 sons. So this brings us to the end of chapter 17, Parvati curses Chitraketu. We shall begin the reading from chapter 18, Goddess Diti vows to kill King Indra next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.